Today's guest is Katelynn Whitaker, a marketing and social impact leader who has spent her career at the intersection of technology and social good, helping to build programs and products that don't just scale globally, but also create real-world impact for communities and the professionals who need it most. In this conversation, Katelynn pulls back the curtain on career pivots, lessons in self-trust, and what it takes to craft a path that aligns with your values and the lessons she's carrying forward as she builds a career on her own terms. Katelynn, welcome to the Her Workplace Unfiltered podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's great to see you and great to be here.
Yeah. So I know that your career has started long before from where you are today. It's been such an evolution. And as a friend of yours, it's been really incredible just watching all of the experiences and opportunities that you've had. So I would love for you to share more with the audience about what your career journey has looked like and where you are now.
I started in the nonprofit industry after college graduation. I always joke that graduating from college was the least prepared I've ever been as like a type A leaning person. I kind of had no idea what I was going to do next, but got a degree in journalism, one of the last degrees that they gave out in print journalism, and went into marketing. Ended up at Movember, which is a global men's health charity. They raise funds and awareness for prostate cancer, testicular cancer, men's mental health, and suicide prevention. And they're all about having fun and doing good, which has become a motto. This having fun, doing good is something I've really pulled throughout my career. So it feels very serendipitous that I ended up at Movember. I took an internship that turned into a coordinator role that turned into 10 years. At this organization, I ended up as the director of marketing for the US, wore a zillion different hats, and really learned that I loved impact work and getting to be at this intersection of marketing and social impact and getting to tell these important stories and bring people into the fold, into nonprofit causes.
And you're from the West Coast. So you started your career, went to school on the West Coast, started your career on the West Coast, and now you're in New York. So did you move from the West Coast to the East Coast with Movember?
I did move with Movember. They didn't transfer me, they didn't relocate me, but I asked if I could move. New York was always a dream in the back of my mind, especially growing up with internships in magazines and a degree in marketing. New York publishing was always the dream, and I always felt energetically connected to New York City, but I did never really think it would happen. And then Movember started a little office out here, and I was traveling out here so much for work that I asked if I could make the pivot.
I love that. Well, obviously, love having you here.
Yeah.
Katelynn and I go way back. We've been friends for several years. And when she moved to New York, I had been here for already a few years. So it's just been really fun having you here.
Yeah, we have a really good community.
So I want to talk about the turning point of you're with Movember for what? Several years.
A decade.
And when did you start to think more about, do I want to be in the nonprofit sector? Or is there another career path for me?
I think it felt less, do I want to be in the nonprofit sector, but where do I want to take my career next? Where's the next step for me? Where can I grow? Where can I, frankly, make more money and build a future more for myself? I found myself, single at 30 and needing to provide for myself. And what does that look like? You can definitely do that in the nonprofit industry, but I felt that I had hit a ceiling at Movember, and I had talked to a lot of my bosses. I was reporting to the CMO in the UK and a brand team in Australia, and so many of the things of the job were so amazing. But I just felt like my influence and room for growth was kind of coming to a close.
Yeah.
And I needed to really look out for myself and figure out
Mhm.
what was going to be the next step
Mhm.
for me, whether that was in the nonprofit space or whether that was making the pivot to corporate on ideally the social impact and corporate social responsibility side.
Mhm. So, with this big leap that you made, a lot of women listening have made similar leaps or they're considering making a big change like you did, and maybe to even experiencing similarly that hitting a wall of
Mm,
like, I don't know what the growth potential is
mm.
for me at this organization. How did you figure that out?
It's such an interesting moment when you think about, do I stay here and do I try and keep growing? Do I try and, take the professional development opportunities or lean into the travel or, what are
Mhm.
the good things in the role and how do I take advantage of those? Or when do you really look to bet on yourself and make a bold change?
Mhm.
And I had been thinking about what I wanted to do next probably for 3 years. I'd been feeling kind of stifled personally and professionally. I left Movember with no backup plan. I quit. I talked to my bosses at the time and I said, my time here has come to a close. It was the one of the top, 5 most anxious, like scariest life transition moments. But I really felt knowing myself, my whole identity and network was connected into Movember. And
Mm.
I felt that I really had to walk away to unlock the potential of that
Yes.
network, to be able to post on LinkedIn, hey, I'm looking for a new role, to be able to
Yeah.
tell friends and family, hey, I've quit my job. I really need help figuring out the next thing. Happy to talk more about like quitting your job with no backup plan, but it's
We'll get into that.
a scary decision. And it did work for me in terms of like lighting up my network. I had a
Yeah.
lot of inbound conversations come in, which was really heartening after
Mhm.
really like betting on myself and taking this big jump.
Yeah. I had a similar experience that
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of going through at the same time as you of just several years feeling stuck and almost like a lack of motivation to build and grow where I was. And
Mm-hmm.
so just really needed that extra push.
Mm-hmm.
And it's betting on yourself. It's taking control of, okay, I'm going to take this leap, take a risk, and do this to myself because I
Mm-hmm.
know that I want to grow. And that's what it takes.
I remember some of our conversations in this
Yeah.
messy transition period that we were having. I also think it comes down to getting uncomfortable enough
Yeah.
in the current position that you're in is often a motivator in and of itself of being kind of feeling really disheartened or disenfranchised. I know that like that was kind of your experience in the corporate world too. And
Mhm.
it was my experience like in the role that I was in, just feeling like there wasn't much more for me
Yeah.
and I wasn't being valued
Right.
in the way that I thought that I could really provide value to an organization
Mhm.
and grow my career, all of those other things. So it was really being uncomfortable enough
Yeah.
and then being also willing to take on more uncomfortability and do something else also hard
Mhm.
in taking that leap to try something new.
Yeah. So was a lot of it too digging into what are my career goals? What are my values? How does this align with where I am now? And just rediscovering that and then finding that misalignment to then say, okay, I'm going to make a change because this isn't the right fit right now. Maybe it was a decade ago, but
Yes.
where I am now, it's not.
And I think there's so much to unpack there. I think your 20s are so much about that self-discovery, right?
Yes.
In
Mm-hmm.
high school and college, you're never like, what are my values? You're kind of flowing from one thing to the next, pursuing things you're interested in and passions. But I think your 20s are really a time to take stock and dive into what are those values? And there's so many like online tools and resources. I worked with an amazing career and executive coach, Amy Sanchez, who totally helped me define those values and really figure out that things like community and connection are really important to me. And how do you build a career and find roles with those things at the center of it? So there was a lot of that soul searching and also being in the working world long enough to identify like, these are the kind of managers I like. This is the kind of community I like. These are the types of roles that drain me or bring me joy. I
Yeah.
think just having experiences in the working world is really important to help continue to propel you forward into more alignment on what feels most true to you.
So, around the same time, or I guess a little bit after, you touched on a big personal experience that you went
Yes.
through. Can you share
Yes.
what that was?
So it was actually before. I was 29, living in LA. I'd been with my nonprofit for a really long time, and I was in a great relationship, got engaged, and panicked and realized that that relationship was not helping me grow in the way that I wanted to. I felt really claustrophobic, honestly. I felt like there was a lot of life that I wanted to lead, and I would have been happy to bring that relationship along with me. But for myriad reasons, my partner didn't want to come on that journey with me. And I really had a fork in the road moment of like, I can stay, I can get married. I'm 29. That's what people do. That's the thing. I was like, okay, I can get married. I'll probably be pregnant in 2 years and I'll live in LA for the rest of my life. And that's fine. Or I can blow up my whole life, figure out how to get to New York, end this relationship, and see what happens from there. And through a series of events, ended my engagement, moved home with my parents. Thank goodness I had them close by to have that availability to move in with them. I was living out of moving boxes for like 3 months. I called my boss at Movember like 5 days later and was like, I just blew up my whole life and I need to get to New York. Like New York was a really big, I don't know why cities call to us specifically, but it felt like a next chapter and a next opportunity and something I had always wanted to do for myself. And if I was going to blow up my whole life, I was going to make it worth it. I was going to move across the country and see what opportunities and things I had in store for myself there.
Yeah.
So it took a few months, but January 1st, 2020, I moved to New York, which was crazy timing in and of itself.
Yeah.
But I really think that trusting my intuition at that time and doing something so hard, I mean, it was physically painful. Everyone who's been through those kinds of breakups, it's physically jarring. And I think learning to trust myself and trust my intuition has been a real theme of the last 6 years of my life, is learning how to bet on myself, trust myself, and know that like I know what's best for me.
Yeah.
And that if I'm living in alignment, things will unveil themselves to me.
And I love how you said that you trusted yourself, because especially being women in our 20s and 30s, those are the times when your boss, your family, your friends, your mentors, they're saying, you should do this. You should get married. You should live here. You should have this job. This is what success looks like for you. And I love how you said, you know what? I'm not going to listen to the outside. I'm going to listen to me and what this feeling inside of me is telling me to do.
I even had a therapist at the time who was like, it's just cold feet. Like, we're going to get you married. She's like, I see so many women who are a few years older than you.
Oh my gosh.
Who are like desperate for love. And, I don't want you to end up in that same place. So like, I think you should get married. And yes, I really did have to do a lot of inner work, but that's something I've been working on ever since, like in therapy with energy healers, any woo-woo thing I've been up to. is listening to my intuition sooner. And I think that is something that's can get so muddied for women is what is fear? What is anxiety? What is our intuition?
Yes.
What is our gut reaction? And what is, doing something hard and being scared of that versus a real intuitive calling to make a change or lean into something different. And that's work I'm still doing to try and learn to listen to that intuition sooner and trust it faster to avoid walking down paths that don't serve me as much.
Yeah.
But it was very hard to leave that relationship. And again, with being uncomfortable, I had just kind of knew that I kind of wasn't going to survive in the place that I was. I felt so stuck and stagnant, and that I just needed space to evolve.
Right. So you moved to New York at the beginning of 2020.
Yes.
And I remember what those days were like.
Yes.
Katelynn and I we were like sitting outside with all of our friends, getting drinks in the freezing cold. It was insane. And so you're with Movember. Let's like fast forward back to the career pivot of you leaving Movember, saying, I'm going to take this risk and then figure out my next move.
Yeah. I stayed with Movember for a few years into New York with the pandemic and everything. It was actually, we all learned a lot of lessons in fast pivoting. And it was an important time to be with, an organization focused on mental health. And I was really proud of the work that we were doing. But a few years later, I had that nagging feeling again that I was stuck and stagnant and that I needed to better myself and make a change. I'd come to New York to really shake things up. And a few years in, my career was that last remaining piece that I needed to shake up. So yeah, left with no safety net. And I had a sense that I would love to be in social impact and stay in this space where I could give back to organizations or the broader community, but from a corporate lens. I was also consulting on the side and doing lots of marketing projects and short-term contracts, and an opportunity to do a maternity cover actually at LinkedIn arose. And I jumped at the opportunity, even though it was short-term. One of the promises I had made to myself was that I wouldn't stay in the same role again for more than a year. After spending 10 years at one organization, I wanted to force myself to continue to pivot. At least for a few years, I wanted to really push and wear more hats and expand my network and learn new skills out in different fields.
I love that goal because, some people do the opposite of they kind of hop around different opportunities and jobs, like 1 year here, 2 years there, 3 years here. That's what I did. And then finally kind of figured out, okay, I'm going to be at this company for a little bit longer. But I love how you kind of did that opposite approach of being somewhere for a long time and then making that a goal for yourself of, okay, I'm still in this discovery mode of really figuring out what I like, what I don't like, who are the people I like working with, what's the work that I like to do.
I feel like I flipped in my mid 30s. I actually gained back, not time that I lost, but I spent, the second half of my 20s in a relationship and building my career and leadership skills in one organization. And so now I was in New York, dating again, career hopping in a way, kind of regaining some of that time when people in their 20s were jumping from job to job, building their networks, building their skills. And I felt like I wanted to reclaim some of that time, especially in New York, and really take advantage of, all the opportunities that this city has to offer.
So where are you now in your career? So you've done some consulting projects, you stepped in for someone on maternity. What are you doing now?
Which is something I would say to the audience. Before I went into contracting and like these short-term positions, I didn't realize how many big corporations, especially in tech, have these contract roles available. So if there's people, looking to pivot into the space, that's one thing I recommend is take a short-term role. It is scary, but it puts an amazing company on your resume. It really, again, broadens your skills and broadens your network. And so that's a way in the door that I
Yeah.
don't think a lot of people who are outside of the industry really know about.
And how did you find those contract roles? Was it a mix of like LinkedIn, on company websites, your network?
Yeah, I would say network is so important. We spend a lot of time at LinkedIn talking about that. We also spend a lot of time talking about people that like don't have access to traditional networks. So I always try and help and lend a hand to anyone who like asks me for help, because I do know that reaching out and having those networking conversations is so
It's hard.
and so scary.
Yeah.
So always like when I can be of help to someone else, I try to at least have that conversation because I know how hard it can be to ask. How I ended up at LinkedIn was through my mom's friend's daughter who was an executive in the HR space. And we just had like a general career conversation. She's like, hey, I heard you're going through a big pivot. I'm in HR. I'd love to just, lend some of my expertise. And she actually connected me.
Wow.
Ended up connecting me with a few opportunities, which was incredible. But it really was being vulnerable and putting myself out there to my whole network and saying like, I am open to anything. I will have a conversation with anyone. I really want to figure out like what's next and where I fit. So yeah, then just kind of through being in more of this ecosystem, I found other short-term contract positions. So I was at Microsoft for a bit on their Microsoft Philanthropies team, helping them build out their nonprofit ecosystem. So I've gotten to stay in this world that supports nonprofits. So I also do consulting roles and help with lots of like nonprofit events and organizations that with their own specific mission. I can come in on like a project basis and help them grow, whatever marketing tool or resource they're trying to build. So I've really been lucky to be able to work with so many different organizations and work with these incredible tech companies that scale impact globally.
Yeah. What does impact look like to you?
That's such a great question. And for anyone who doesn't know, social impact in corporations can look like, giving away grants or look like giving away product. So, if a platform specifically has discounted tools and resources or donated advertising space, things that the company is uniquely able to give back to. Generally, it's nonprofit communities, but also it's underserved populations that corporation cares about specifically.
Right.
So I don't even know. A lot of people are like, what is social impact? And how do you kind of get into that space? So I think impact can look and feel like a lot of things. I think we all have impact in our personal daily lives. And how does your career allow you to have that impact? I don't think it always has to be working for a nonprofit or working in corporate social impact. Someone gave me really interesting advice when I first pivoted into the corporate space was what monetary value people can provide to the organizations that need it if you are in a more traditional career path where you are amassing wealth, for lack of a better term.
Right.
How can you serve on a board and give your, time and talents and financial benefit? How can you use your corporate gift matching? Like, huge plug to any corporate women out there who have gift matching at your corporation. It's free money that will double your donation to the nonprofits that you care about.
Right.
So there's a lot of ways that you can use your corporate day job to benefit causes that are important to you without being specifically in one of those roles.
Right. Yeah. And you're exactly right. I talk with a lot of women day to day about feeling impactful in their career and, some of them not getting that benefit out of their 9 to 5. Like, some people say that your career has to be your purpose, which I don't believe that. Like, you can have a corporate job or a 9 to 5 job that does other things for your life, such as helps you pay your bills and really provide impact in other ways outside of your company. So I love how you say that of you can join boards. There's junior boards you can join. You can get involved with nonprofits. You can, do the corporate matching. There's other ways to really kind of give yourself that opportunity.
And I would say it ranges from our personal and individual influence. How are we showing up as managers and colleagues and support roles to each other at work? How are we having impact on like other people's daily lives? All the way through to, what financial contributions are we giving to nonprofits? I'll also give a plug on LinkedIn. Not many people know that there's actually an open to volunteer feature on LinkedIn. So you can add it to your profile and you can say that you're open to volunteering and you can list the skills and the causes that you uniquely are able to give and that you're interested in. And then you can go and search like you would search for a job. You can search for volunteer opportunities.
Oh, cool.
And there's this treasure trove. Hundreds of thousands of volunteer opportunities are on LinkedIn. Board positions, volunteer positions. There's actually a really cool organization we work with that has career conversations where you can be matched with like a career starter and have those career conversations. So even just a few of those mentoring type conversations, it doesn't have to be a long-term commitment, but they can be so rewarding.
Yeah.
One thing that Ariana Huffington actually talks about at her Thrive Foundation is how much that giving back and volunteering and having purpose in life is important for thriving.
Yes.
And that can be big or small, but I would encourage everyone to find those, moments of purpose or opportunities that you can to be of service to others because it really will make you more fulfilled personally and professionally.
Yeah. I love that. So what's next for you?
The $1 million question. I would love to keep pursuing a career at this intersection of technology and social impact. I think AI is obviously so rapidly changing the world, changing all of our day-to-day lives, changing the face of corporate America. But there's also this huge opportunity to not let other communities get left behind in this massive technological revolution. So
Right.
how are nonprofits using AI and having it help them enhance the work that they're doing? How are, even older generations or career starters making sure they're having that digital literacy so that they are able to use AI to advance their career and thrive in this next chapter of kind of what AI looks like in all of our lives, personally and professionally. So I'm really passionate about making sure that everyone is brought along in this next technology evolution.
Yeah. One thing that I've loved just watching you do is, especially when you made that pivot from Movember to then doing consulting and contract work, I feel like you've done a really great job at building your brand, building your network, building and growing your influence. What is that experience for you been like?
As marketers, not sure if any other marketers who are listening resonate with this, but a lot of times we're behind the scenes and we're telling stories so much on a day-to-day that we're often not telling our own stories.
Right.
I spent a long time doing that, doing a lot of media training for others, telling a lot of other people's stories. And then in this pivot, I had the opportunity, but also the obligation to myself to be putting myself out there a bit more, figuring out like what is my personal brand, what's my unique value proposition in the marketplace, and how do I want to be telling impact stories, but like through my own lens.
Right.
And obviously going to work for LinkedIn was a big motivator and fun opportunity just to test things. We're so encouraged to post and we get to see, all the fun things that are being launched all the time. We get to test those out and use the platform to tell our stories. But I also think that telling our stories and creating content can be a really fun creative outlet.
Yeah.
It can feel like a challenge and another job, and it can feel overwhelming to post on TikTok a ton or to post on Instagram a lot. I know it is a heavy lift, but when we can find that balance of where it feels fun and feels creative and feels authentic to us, there can be a freedom in that I've been trying to play around with and would encourage other people to do the same. Like what feels like it's in your wheelhouse to create and to talk about, especially on LinkedIn. Like what is your piece of knowledge and expertise that you can really comfortably share on a platform like LinkedIn feels like a lower barrier to entry to people, I think, who might be intimidated to start sharing their story.
Yeah. What advice would you give someone that is looking to build influence? Like, I feel like you've done a really great job at building your network. And when you started working with LinkedIn, like you developed those really strong relationships with colleagues. You're always going to a lot of events and you have different pockets and groups of both professional and personal relationships. So what advice would you give someone that is looking for that?
Again, listen to your intuition, listen to your energy levels, do what feels aligned with you. I am an extrovert. I love saying yes to things. I love being in community with other people. I think best, I recharge best with other humans, especially, friends and people that I trust in communities that I've cultivated for myself. That's not the case for everyone.
Right.
But find what things you can do to push yourself into those spaces of community and connection in a way that is energetically aligned. If you're miserable, that's going to be a tough sell and that's going to read. But find things that you do feel comfortable saying yes to, and lean into those, I think. And I think it goes back to that like personal versus professional influence and small influence versus mass influence. Where can you have an impact or have a more deep and meaningful connection that's maybe more one-on-one versus going to a networking event if that seems intimidating to you?
There's other ways. Yeah, I love how you say that because not everyone is an extrovert and wants to get involved with all of these organizations or go to all these events. And there's other ways that you can build and grow your network and your influence that doesn't have to be that. Yeah.
I think there's a lot about like saying no these days, but also what can you say yes to? Like, what are you invited to? And maybe New York is a specific example of this, but there's so many things going on. There's always things that like we're getting invited to. What, again, that is energetically aligned to you. What can you say yes to more? Where the opportunity is already there for you. You didn't have to create it out of something. You can just say yes to something.
Yeah. Say yes. So we do close every episode with just a few rapid fire questions to really learn how our guests are leading and building careers on their own terms. So I want to ask you, what's one thing that you do each day to stay grounded?
This is really hard because I don't know if I have a daily practice. There's a lot of things.
Well, you're running.
Yes. So I'm
right now
training for the New York City Marathon, and that has come with so many like hard lessons in time management for me and the snooze button and all of those kinds of things. But I do think working out generally is a non-negotiable. It doesn't have to be every day, but 4 or 5 times a week, carving out that time for myself. Movement is always medicine and will always make me feel better.
Love that. What is something that you used to think was necessary for success, but you don't anymore?
Perfectionism. And I used to have this deep fear of failure, especially when I was early on in my career. I just feel like the pivot from, college or internships or things to then being in this 9-to-5 environment, we've never done this before.
Right.
And I think I felt scared for a long time. Like, am I doing this right? Performance reviews felt really scary. Even if things were going well, I just felt like I had to work really hard or put in these really long hours or everything had to be perfect. And I know that that's not the case anymore, that things done well and with good intent,
right,
and owning mistakes that happen or asking questions along the way is an important part of the process that
Mhm.
no one will dock you for.
Right. And then what does building a career on your own terms mean to you?
Building a career on my own terms looks like continuing to trust myself. I hope it looks like a career that I didn't see coming, that I couldn't even manifest
Mm,
because it's bigger and the world is changing so quickly. I want to stay resilient and open and hopeful despite, all the headwinds that we have against us. It feels like currently, I want to stay hopeful and optimistic and keep saying yes to things that, yeah, will hopefully lead me to a career that I couldn't even imagine for myself because
yeah.
it's so fulfilling and rewarding and
Mhm.
impactful.
And then before we wrap, where can people find you, follow you, connect with you?
I'm on LinkedIn, Katelynn Whitaker, Katelynn Whitaker, Whitaker. A fun tip is that on LinkedIn, you can follow people. You don't always have to connect with people.
Mhm.
So you can drop down from people's profiles. So if there's executives or thought leaders that you want to just keep up with their content, you can actually follow them instead of directly connecting with folks. So feel free to follow me or connect directly, send me a message. But yeah, LinkedIn is probably the best place to connect professionally.
Great. Well, thank you so much for being here with us. I love your story and your career journey, and it's just been really great cheering you on. So thank
Thanks.
you.
Happy to cheer you on too. This is such a joy.
Thank you.